Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
Good Tuesday morning to you. It's 7:06 now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here to our morning extravaganza. We got a busy 8 o'clock hour. We'll kick things off with the chairman of the FCC, Commissioner Brendan Carr. And then at 8:35, we'll speak with the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House, Jim Jordan. Wonder how this whole Epstein thing is sitting with him.
Are you going to
He
ask
oversees
him?
all that, right? Maybe we'll have some hearings about that. Anyway, that's all coming up. We've also got some questions about James Comey and Christopher Wray. Lots of stuff to talk to Jim Jordan about. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Cassie Smedile. And we haven't plugged your coin venture.
Oh, yeah, thanks. COIGN.com. If you want your money to match your values, get on the wait list for a coin card.
It's that
Works
simple.
like every other credit card you've ever had in your wallet, except this one doesn't support woke causes.
That's right. You don't want your interest fees or your credit card fees to go to pay for, stuff you don't agree with. Coins got you covered. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Joining us right now, speaking of values and things that we all agree on, Ron Halber is the CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. And I am a proud supporter of the State of Israel. Ron, I love telling people that I'm a Catholic Zionist, and they don't know what to make of it. But it makes sense. It works, I promise.
Yeah, you and Joe Biden.
Whoa, hey.
You're both Catholic Zionists.
Is he a Zionist, though? I don't know.
Yeah, he said, I'm a proud Zionist. You don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. That was one of Joe Biden's favorite
I'm a little less tolerant of Hamas than our former Catholic so-called president. Ron, thanks for joining us. Yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu had a meeting with the president and his team there. And boy, oh boy, you would think there's no daylight between these two. The good feelings and vibes seem to be flying there when the cameras were on.
Yeah, it was really I think it was what we expected, and it was expected when you have two leaders of two nations that together accomplished quite an offensive military action against Iran, and were there to show mutual admiration. I think that shone through.
In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu presented the president with a letter that he had drafted for the Nobel Committee nominating President Trump for the Peace Prize.
Well, from the Israeli perspective, unabashed American support has allowed the Israelis to help bring peace in the region. Now, it didn't happen diplomatically. It happened because of the military defeat of Hamas, Hezbollah, the overturn of Syria, the removal of Iranian as a ballistic and nuclear threat. And for Israel, that's created an entire new strategic situation where she has a greater chance where her neighbors don't present the same threat they do, and has ushered in the possibility of other countries now realizing that peace through strength is the formula that works in the Middle East and could possibly enter in a new age.
So how does peace through strength manifest post-Iran bombing raid now that Witkoff has revealed that they're going to be holding new talks on a new nuclear deal, which, again, I'm not sure how we or why we should trust the Iranian government with any kind of nuclear deal. I mean, it doesn't matter what they agree to. How do you know that they're adhering to it? And then also the move toward a ceasefire deal with Hamas.
Well, I think at this point, there's a tremendous amount of domestic pressure in Israel for a ceasefire. 70% of Israelis want it. Most Israelis want this peace, want a ceasefire. The military has already informed the political leadership that there's really nothing left to accomplish strategically in Gaza, so and wants to avoid being brought into a grinding war, and therefore it's time to make a deal. I think a lot of there's going to be parts of the deal that are going to be difficult for Israelis to swallow, which is, for example, waiting 60 days to only get half of the bodies back and half of the live hostages, and the idea that Israel, the one thing that's going to be very difficult to convince the Israelis to do, which is that that there will be a permanent ceasefire as long as negotiations are going, which obviously gives Hamas the ability to keep drawing out the conflict. And I don't think the Israelis will go for this. They want all their people home yesterday.
Yeah, but that's the maddening thing about this, Ron, that we're having this conversation about a ceasefire and the terms while they're still holding on to hostages. I thought there was a time where, nothing moves forward until everybody is released. Then maybe we can talk. Are those days behind us now? Is that just not going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. This is an ideological terrorist group that's willing to fight to the death of their last civilian. The lives of their own people really don't mean much to them. And the only thing that they care about, to them, victory is having one person being able to hold the flag, saying they survived. And therefore, the only shit that they hold at this point are the lives of, our 30 bodies and the lives of 20 innocent people who should have been released. And Israel is not going to get those people home unless they make, unfortunately, some very painful concessions. But that's just the reality.
What is the security situation like now in Israel? As you know, I was talking with over the summer. My family always tries to make travel plans for the next 12 to 18 months, and I'm really interested. I want to go to Israel. I want to see the Holy Land. I want to walk in the pathways of my Messiah. And people in my family are like, we don't want to go there. We're scared. We're afraid that it's too dangerous. I mean, that is a consideration right now. Israel needs to have people coming back and visiting their nation, don't they?
Yeah, tourism is a very, very important part of Israel's economy, and I think the closer they get to peace, the closer they get to a ceasefire, the quicker that pilgrims and other sort of tourists will return. I don't think it's going to take that long, because as soon as people are confident that things between Israel and Hamas are over, but the other thing is it over with Iran? That's the big thing. I mean, Israel has great capability to shoot down projectiles coming from Hamas. But at one time, 16% one day, the worst day of the 12-day war, 16% of Iran's capacity got through, and that is a lot when you're talking about ballistic missiles. But for now, it seems like Israel has rendered Iran offensively a paper tiger. And the one thing that came out of the war, the Prime Minister, when he was comparing removing the threat of Iran's nuclear and ballistic capacity as tumors, was that once you remove a tumor, you got to constantly monitor it. So the Israelis know that the Iranians are going to want to begin their programs again, and that is the biggest threat. In the end, the only way for Iran to be contained is either one, regime change, or two, an agreement they stick to.
We're speaking with Ron Halber. He's the CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. Now that it appears that nuclear threat has been mitigated, at least for the time being, you're right. Of course, they're going to go right back to trying to develop.
Mitigated is the key word, right?
Yeah, right. Not eliminated. So, given that, though, there was some indication from the White House and the administration that there could be further peace deals with other nations in the region. Now that the Persian threat has been somewhat ramped down, this would be a great time for sort of new style Abraham Accords, where other Arab nations who were sort of waiting, yet at the same time concerned about the rise of Persia there, that they might be able to announce new deals with Israel. Do you think that that's still a possibility, or as long as the conflict with Gaza continues or with Hamas continues, that there's not going to be a peace deal with other nations?
Well, I think people overestimate how much all of the Arab countries care about the Palestinian cause. I mean, Israel did sign agreements in 1979 with Egypt, in 1994 with Jordan, and then under the first administration with 4 Arab states. And during that entire time, Israel was still in conflict with the Palestinians. So, it's hard for a country like Saudi Arabia, which is, as the custodian of the holy places, is the leader of the Sunni world, to make peace with Israel. And, of course, that's the grand prize, without a pathway to peace. But look, even the Saudis were first insisting and saying, "Oh, there must be a Palestinian state," and now they're just talking about, well, a pathway. So that they're willing. They've already lowered the thing. I think the greatest possibility is for a peace agreement with Syria, and I think if that happens, you will see. Then there'll be pressure building on the Saudis. Some of the Saudi conditions are a defense pact with the United States and the ability to have a domestic nuclear thing, so that would probably pose some difficulties for the Israelis. But I certainly believe that the collapse of the proxies of these regimes, which were actually destabilizing Arab countries around the region, because these were armies in their own countries, that we are in a better position for peace in the next year. I would be startled in the next year if Israel did not announce a new a peace agreement with a new Arab state, and I do think there will be more agreements in the coming years.
That would be an amazing thing to see, Ron. From your lips to God's ears. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
For those of you who travel, and if you haven't done your summer travel quite yet, you've got really, really good news delivered from the Department of Homeland Security, and most specifically TSA. Very quietly yesterday, relatively quietly. See, personally, I would do like a White House party for this kind of news. But they just basically put out the press release and a statement that from this point forward, TSA will no longer require passengers to remove their shoes during the check-in process. And my God, especially families traveling with children, this is a godsend.
Yes. I guess this is like one of those things. We need more context. Why did it take so long? What prompted this decision? But yes, glad it is done. And for those of you who now can keep your shoes on through security, this also means you can keep your shoes on throughout the duration of your travels, including in flight. Let's also mandate that. Larry, how do you feel about keeping shoes on during flights?
I don't know why you're dragging me into this conversation. Everybody knows that I have a habit of removing my shoes mid-flight, and there's nothing wrong with that. People deserve to be comfortable. I wear socks. I have clean shoes, that no one has ever complained about a smell. If they did, I would put my shoes back on, but I know trust me, Meredith keeps me in check, Smedile, okay?
That's fair. I forgot, but sometimes I just picture you like traveling solo. Meredith's with you. I have a lot more confidence in this practice. Thanks. But I thought the audience should know this about you.
People don't realize it, but I'm in the air like every 3 weeks. I'm traveling somewhere. I'll be flying this weekend. I'll be flying again the weekend of the 27th. I'll be flying again. Oh, no, actually, I'm taking Amtrak in August, but then flying again at the end of it. I'm constantly on a plane, and I'm going to be comfortable, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Anyway, if you're flying starting today, TSA will no longer require you to remove your shoes for safety. Now, of course, you'll remember that it was 2006 when a terrorist tried to detonate an explosive that he had embedded in his shoe while on a flight from Paris to Miami. I believe his name was Richard Ramirez, I want to say. I'm not recalling right now what his name was. At that point forward, they required you to remove your shoes for additional safety inspections. Now, just so you know, TSA is not letting their guard down, and they're still concerned about this kind of thing, but we're told the technology has now increased to such a level that they will be able to detect a threat in your shoes with the existing screening that takes place. I'm a pre-check guy. I've been pre-check for like 10 years now. And if you're pre-check, you don't have to take your shoes off.
Right. And you can keep your computer in your bag, and it's worth it.
Oh, it's totally worth it to do TSA pre-check.
Richard Reed. So
Reed,
you were really
that's
good.
Right. Richard Ramirez was the serial killer in California back in the 90s.
Serial
Sorry
killer.
about that.
But I would like, since we're on the subject, and if anyone from the TSA is listening, can you also lift the 3-ounce rule? Because my lotion is 4 ounces. I can't tell you the number of times that they've confiscated. But sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. It's the inconsistency that travelers are really...
I think it's the big water lobby. You know, they want you to dump out your water bottles. They sell more water this way. You should be able to go through TSA pre-check and drink some of your water out of your bottle to prove that it's not acid or rocket fuel or some sort of inflammatory, so you can keep your giant bottle of water that you just bought an hour before you got to the airport.
For $10.
Thank you.
And actually... Yes, as a mom who travels with babies, I bring loads of milk through. You can bring milk, juice, anything if you say you've got a kid in there.
That's right.
So I think there's ways to help people with all of that.
I should say that I'm an expectant mother, and I need to have my bottle of water.
That's how you identify, Larry.
You know what? That's why I take my shoes off. I'm pregnant. My feet are swelling. Leave me alone. It's 7:23. Coming up, there was a showdown in Los Angeles yesterday at a notorious park in downtown. ICE agents with a show of force. The mayor of Los Angeles very angry about it. We'll give you the details next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37 this Tuesday morning. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 8:05, Brendan Carr, chairman of the FCC. 8:35, Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. It's O'Connor and Company with me, Larry, and she, Cassie Smedile. Good morning, Cassie, for being here today.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Yesterday in Los Angeles, it was quite a sight to behold as ICE agents and federal authorities made a sweep through historic MacArthur Park. Now, MacArthur Park, scene of a lot of famous movies over the years, going all the way back to the silent film era. It's just west of downtown Los Angeles. It's sort of in the danger zone of high crime here and there. The city continues to pump millions of dollars in with renovation after renovation. The latest one in 22 was to the tune of about $1.5 million for new trees, new plantings. And this, I remember covering this. I did a radio show in Los Angeles at the time, and they announced the big reopening of MacArthur Park within a week. It's completely taken over by drug addicts and prostitutes and criminal vagrants, homeless. It's just it's rampant. It's actually become one of the most dangerous areas in all of downtown Los Angeles, this beautiful historic park, and the city does nothing about it. And, of course, a lot of the criminal element that take advantage of this park are in the country illegally. So here comes ICE with a show of force sweeping through the park, and the mayor of Los Angeles is angry at the cops.
Of course.
Draws a line that they've got to go. This is horrible. This is, here's Karen Bass. By the way, don't forget, she was in Ghana when her city was burning to a crisp 6 months ago. But then she sees this going on television. She hops in a motorcade, heads straight down there, and demands that ICE leave. She's never set foot in MacArthur Park up until this point. She hasn't done anything about the drug dealers and about the fentanyl addicts that litter the playground there. But she had to get down there to make sure that the ICE agents got out because they're the problem. It's again, I'm speechless sometimes at what is going on in California, and specifically what these Democrat politicians are doing with regard to allowing lawlessness to continue. And I know enough people in Los Angeles, even Democrats, who are like, yeah, I wouldn't set foot in that park. Of course there's criminal activity there. And if the local police aren't going to do it, absolutely let the feds take care of it.
Well, and she was pretty quickly ratioed when she tried to tweet that 20 minutes earlier there were children playing in this park, and then they were run out by an army of federal agents, and all the comments are like, no kids are playing in that park. That is not a park that kids play in.
If kids are playing in MacArthur Park, their parents should be sent to jail.
Yes, sounds
for
like
endangering their children.
Yes. And other commenters saying this is riddled with, it's not just the drug addicts, and it's run by gang members. It's run by MS-13. It's absolutely, yes, a place that ICE has, again, as we were talking about earlier, ICE is enforcing the law, and it seems they are having to do so in the absence of city leaders and local law enforcement not doing their jobs.
Yeah.
This is what we voted for.
And it is. And by the way, it was like, well, they didn't arrest anybody. Again, oftentimes that's what a show of force is meant to do, is to get the criminal element out. They don't always apprehend everybody and arrest everybody. But by the way, that's another damned if you do and damned if you don't. If they did arrest a bunch of people, they'd claim that they're taking innocent people hostage and ripping them off the street and throwing them in cages. And instead, now they're complaining that they didn't arrest anybody. See, it was just for show. It was just theater. It wasn't really about any criminal element. So it's like, pick your poison here. Here's the mayor, Karen Bass, speaking with the media.
Frankly, it is outrageous and un-American that we have federal armed vehicles in our parks when nothing is going on in the parks. It's outrageous and un-American that the federal government seized our state's National Guard. It's outrageous and un-American that we have U.S. Marines who are trained to kill foreign soldiers overseas deployed in our American city.
By the way, that's an insult to the United States Marines, who are doing a very good and professional job there. It's, Marines are just trained killers, nothing more, nothing less. That's disgusting. How dare you, woman? How dare you? Also, by the way, this whole, it's un-American that the federal government can seize our National Guard. You lost that fight in the federal court system. Okay, so you're the un-American one here by challenging our separation of powers and challenging the constitutional rulings about the federal government's authority over the California National Guard. The outrage she shows over the ICE agents, Cassie, it would be welcome if she showed that same outrage over the criminal element who has taken over that park on a daily basis.
Yes, exactly. And there wouldn't need to be this show of force if not for the open border policies of the last administration, not for the sanctuary city policies of her doing and her state with Gavin Newsom, that has allowed lawlessness to run rampant, where she said nothing is going on. What do you call that? Because the open air drug use, this isn't a couple guys sitting around singing Kumbaya, smoking a joint.
Right.
This is really serious stuff. And by the way, if people are having, as Democrats love to say, I used to live in D.C., I've now moved across the river, but they would love to say, oh, these are mental health incidents. Well, that's not compassionate to them either, to let them just sit there and be there. So, again, choose your battle here, but you're either cleaning up lawlessness or you're trying to help people who are in a really bad place in life get the help they need. But doing nothing is not an acceptable answer.
And demonizing law enforcement. She took to social media and she said the military is swept. It's not the military. It's federal law enforcement officers. They're doing their job. And I love, Democrats are all upset that federal officials can come into a local jurisdictions and exercise their federal supremacy over local laws. This is the bed they made. Under Obama, under Clinton, they loved it when the feds came in and took over operations in a local jurisdiction that they disagreed with. Well, these are the rules that they have set up, that they have formulated and agreed to. They're the ones who want a huge, all-powerful, robust federal government. They just don't like it when it's used against their own interests and their own pet constituencies, like drug dealers and gang members. The people in Los Angeles don't even call it MacArthur Park anymore. They call it Meth-Arthur Park. That's how bad it's gotten there, and everybody knows it. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. In a moment, we'll tell you what Governor Gavin Newsom had to say about it yesterday, because he had something to say, of course, because he's running for president. That's coming up in just a moment. Right now, it's 7:44.
Later this morning in the Chris Plant Show, Democrat members of Congress say their voters tell them they might have to get shot for the Trump resistance. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Yeah, no one left their cake out in the rain in this MacArthur Park. It's cake is the last thing you need to worry about, or rain for that matter. Just a few months ago, California Insider, which is a sort of, I guess, right-of-center news outlet in the state of California, did a whole documentary about MacArthur Park. Here, take a listen.
The core center of L.A., MacArthur Park in the Westlake section, is failing miserably for a few reasons. Neglect, and we have an historic park that's on the National Register of Historic Places back to the 1800s. And there are gangs in the MacArthur Park area. Interestingly, 67% of the families don't have a dad.
There's more. It's actually well worth your watch if you want to inform yourself and educate yourself about where things are at MacArthur Park right now and why it's just a complete and total crime-infested cesspool. Gavin Newsom, though, he saw what happened yesterday, and he saw who the real enemy was, not the gang members, not the meth addicts, not the illegal aliens who have taken over MacArthur Park with their criminal activity and prostitution rings. No. The enemy is Stephen Miller from the White House.
What a disgrace, what's happening in MacArthur Park. What theater. On the 6-month anniversary, after all, of these fires, that's the message from the polluted heart of the President of the United States, the polluted heart of Stephen Miller. Those National Guard men and women that were out there protecting people are now being used as political pawns, out there on horsebacks running through soccer fields in the middle of the day, timed around announcements and events like this. It says everything You and I need to know about the state of mind.
It sounds like he's about to cry, Gavin Newsom there, Cassie. And I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall here, but it's not like everything's so great in California. And yet he has set up, basically he's created this straw man enemy of Trump. And I guess Democrats like, well, he's fighting Trump. It's like, no, but look what he did as governor. Look at how this place is falling apart. Don't be distracted by him deciding to create an enemy with Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. The reason that they're there, the reason the law enforcement has to be there is because he has not done his job. He's let the place go to hell.
And that's exactly it. I also don't understand Democrats continuing to pick the losing side of these issues,
yes.
Whether it's, the Maryland man, the Maryland dad or whatever, Abrego Garcia, that they all went and had margaritas with and defended. And of course it was, confirmed that he absolutely has criminal ties and himself alleged criminal. And then here, making this whole hay out of this park that you just outlined, this is not Disneyland that they went and invaded. Right. This is a drug-laden park.
Yeah, he mentioned them going, storming across the soccer field. You know what wasn't happening on the soccer field? No one was playing soccer. This is Southern California in the middle of summer, and no kids were playing soccer on that soccer field. You know why? Because their parents won't let them. Because they'd be killed or get addicted to meth or worse. It's 7:53.